JC, I just want to delve into the international and investing area. What looks really interesting now?
I think it depends on your time horizon, right? So while we're seeing rotation into Brazil, for example, which has been very heavily shorted, and seeing stocks out of Brazil doing really well. Bigger picture, I think it's China, right? You got historic momentum thrust back in September before the election, suggesting that it was time to be buying China, and we were. And what was beautiful is going into the election, it was quite obvious to all of us paying attention that they were already pricing in a Trump victory. You saw it in the strength in financials, you saw it in crypto, you just saw it in Trump stuff, right? It's probably the best way to explain it. The
Right.
poly markets were all saying Trump winner, right? So you saw that happening. So it's like, okay, so if that's what's going to happen, how's the market going to react, right? That's how we think. Well, everybody's going to just assume that that's bad for China because tariffs and blah blah blah. So it's like perfect, catch the market so offsides because they're so focused on their politics that they can't think straight, and they're completely ignoring the massive momentum thrust that you saw in China in September before the election. And sure
Hmm.
enough, we absolutely nailed that trade. China absolutely ripping ever since. But I don't just think that that was that. I truly still think, and we thought it then, even though it worked in the short term, we thought then that there was a very real possibility that that could be the beginning of a secular move in China with all of the pessimism, particularly the pessimism, Catherine, because historic moves start with extremes in pessimism. And as much as everybody in America hates Chinese stocks and, they have underperformed for so long, it's even worse in Southeast Asia because these countries, they're like accounts, they're mandated to own Chinese stocks. So they own this garbage
Hmm.
Baidu, and they're watching Apple and Microsoft and Amazon exploding higher. They don't own any of it because they're stuck with this Chinese stuff. So as bad as you think sentiment is in America, it's way worse out there. So yeah, I think this is the beginning of a lot more. A lot of stocks that trade in the United States that are headquartered out there.
Hmm. But it's amazing though that the way you're describing it to a fundamental, investor, it doesn't sound like something I want to own. Why give us a little bit more granularity on the technicals that you're seeing as relates to investing in China?
Yep. So just like you say, fundamental investors don't want to own China. Great. No, none of the investors want to own China. They have historic short interest. So to your point, Catherine, not only do people not want to own it, they are shorting it more aggressively than they have in many years. Right? They're actually betting against it. Great. Right? So all of those short sellers are guaranteed future buyers. The more short sellers, the more people have to buy something. And then
Hmm.
we've seen a massive bottoming process happen over years. China has been underperforming and going down forever. And then those momentum thrusts that we saw in September, where we saw the velocity in the buying pressure, that rate of change that we saw, not just in China on an absolute basis, but relative to America, relative to the rest of the world, relative to Japanese stocks across the board, 1 day rate of change, 1 week rate of change, 2 week rate of change,
Hmm.
3 day rate of changes, you name, however you want to slice and dice it. We've never seen that before ever from Chinese equities. And one thing we know very consistently is when we see that type of momentum, Chinese equities or otherwise, it is very consistently something we see early in cycles, evidence of accumulation, not exhaustion. So that leads me to believe that
Hmm.
there's legs here, and sentiment just reiterates that that's exactly what we should be doing, buying those.
And JC, for you, when you buy China, are you buying just a China ETF, or are you getting a little bit more specific?
All of the above. You could buy the Chinese ETF, know what's in it. There's FXI, which are the big 25. Then you've got the K Web, and those are the internet stocks, KWEB. And then you have CQQQ, and that's Chinese technology, right? So understand how the weightings are different. Some have more Baba, some have more Tencent or Baidu. So see the components of those ETFs. Make sure you're in what you want to be in. Because though
Okay.
they take out big ones from ETF to ETF. But I really like, individually, there's the of China. You got the Apple of China and Xiaomi. You've got Build Your Dreams, which is the Tesla of China. Baidu, which is the Google of China. Alibaba, the Amazon of China. So I like the of China plays. Pick your favorite. I just mentioned a few, but you can take a look at those.
That's a lot of names that you love
It's
in
a big, it's a
China.
big country, Catherine. I mean, what do you want?
I understand. I hear you. And just with respect to Brazil, again, do you like to just own the country ETF or the market ETF, or do you want to get a little bit more specific?
The ETF EWZ is going to be priced in dollars, so you're not getting that move in the real. So some of the stocks you could look at PAGS, PAGS, Stone, STNE. These are some fintech names in there that are popping.